Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hi, everyone, and welcome. Stuart Andrew Alexander back again with another impact-making guest, and we're going to find out just why in a few short moments. But first, let's take a moment to introduce her to the show. Now, today's guest is someone who helps executives and entrepreneurs to design and enhance their reputation and personal brand so they can create a name for themselves, amplify their reputation, or repair their reputation for sustainable career impact and results. She is an international branding and reputation management expert who designs and enhances the identities of global companies and executives. With more than 20 years of experience creating and implementing reputation strategies, she excels at uncovering and communicating the values that operate at the core value of each company and individual. And as a principal and founder, she helps clients with reputation management, online social presence, and personal branding strategies designed to closely align with specific business and personal goals, and is often featured in MSNBC, Entrepreneur Magazine, US News and World Report, Kiplinger's Personal Finance, Fortune Magazine, Forbes.com, Harvard Business Review, and CBS Moneywatch. Furthermore, ladies and gentlemen, she is the author of Reputation 360, Creating Power Through Personal Branding, a best-selling guide to gaining competitive advantage through reputation management. She also hit the bestsellers list for a second time in 2014 with her follow-up book, Your Next Mission, a personal branding guide for the military to civilian transition, a resource for personal branding, career, and professional information for veterans. And she's here today to talk to us about some of the problems and some of the obstacles, even the misconceptions, pitfalls, and fears surrounding the individuals and organizations she has a passion around helping the most. So please, let's welcome her to the show, principal and founder of LIDA360, Lida Citroën. Lida, are you there? Welcome to the show.
I am. Thank you so much, Stuart. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning.
So, Lida, in your own words, who is it that you help? Who is your perfect prospect?
My perfect prospect is an executive or a professional or even an entrepreneur that is really looking to position themselves by using specialized reputation management techniques. So if I were to say, who is my ideal client, they're people anywhere in the world, actually, that are interested in enhancing their presence in their target market, maybe redefining their reputation in their industry or their company, or maybe something negative has happened and they need to repair their reputation to make sure their career moves along in the way that they design.
Okay, Lida. So when you think about the people who you help, what are 2 to 3 common obstacles you find that prevent them from achieving their desired outcome?
That's a great question. I think the first is that they're not seeing the impact or the growth in their career that they really want. So they might have alignment with a passion or a cause, but that alignment isn't showing up in their business. They might feel stuck in their ability to influence those stakeholders who really have the ability to give them that opportunity or leave a significant imprint. I think the second one is a lot of my clients are facing a transition. They might be a CEO who's leaving his or her post to start a new career. Maybe they're a high-profile entrepreneur who wants to take their skills and apply them to a different market. Or they could be an executive who really wants to be known as a thought leader, but hasn't taken advantage of any of those tools. I would say the third category of clients who find me that are facing an obstacle are those people whose reputation has taken a hit. Perhaps they're an executive who got caught up in a scandal and needs help repairing their personal brand. the reputation damage can be so impactful to their career that maybe they're not able to get rehired, or they don't have any support from their network and are having real trouble impacting and re-entering the marketplace. Those are 3 typical obstacles that people find and eventually find me.
Okay, so when they do eventually find you, Lida, what are 2 to 3 popular misconceptions they may have about the outcomes they want to achieve? Now, these misconceptions, they could be true or not true, but they perceive them to be true. So name us 2 or 3 of those examples, please.
Sure. The first one is the perception or misperception that personal branding isn't really that important. And I think a lot of that is outside of the US. Many of my clients are overseas, and a lot of them believe that if they just do good work, if they just keep showing up and they just keep plugging along, that they will get noticed and their career will somehow magically develop into what they dream about. I think the second misconception is that personal branding is somehow bragging. And I think we see that a lot when personal branding gets wrapped up in celebrity branding or even in the concept of political candidate branding. Some of these clients see that the idea of creating an intentional reputation strategy is somehow boastful and it's inauthentic, when in fact it's quite the opposite. And I think the third misconception really is that it's not possible. That it's truly not possible to design your career, to identify and target an audience, and to build control and intention and focus around a career to make your career fulfilling and successful. Those would be the 3 biggest misconceptions that I run into.
Are there any other misconceptions that you can think of? I mean, those are 3 big ones and very useful to know, but just one more. Can you share one more that the people you work with should be mindful of?
I think the other misconception, especially when it comes to personal branding, would be that this is a lot of work, that this is really hard, and it's just easier to just sort of, be at the mercy of what the universe or your influencers will provide for you. And I think personal branding puts the control back. It puts the intention and the strategy back in. And I admit the first part is a lot of work. But once you do the work, the marketing and living that brand and being mindful of that reputation is so much easier. But there's a perception out there that this takes a lot of time and it's a lot of hard work. And some executives are just simply too busy.
So when it comes to return on investment on personal branding, surely this is something that you hear about when you're out there talking with your clients. What do you normally say to them? Because I think there's this widespread perception that if I invest in my branding, where's the return on investment? I pay $500, how much am I going to get back, and in what time span? Do you come across that while you're out there, Lida?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, my clients are successful business leaders and they don't do anything on a whim and a prayer. So it has to be measurable. And that's, I think, where I get to differentiate myself from some of the other services that they might be looking at. Personal branding is very measurable. Reputation management is measurable. And it really is because you start by taking a snapshot of time and saying, this is where I am, this is what's working and what isn't working, and this is where I want to make a difference or an impact. I want to see business return on investment, or I want to feel personally more gratified, whatever the metrics are going to be. And then as you deploy the personal branding strategies, you start seeing the needle move and affecting that change. And it is very measurable, whether my client is looking to re-enter the workplace and it's about finding a meaningful, fulfilling job, whether it's about taking their brand and leveraging it in a new community to create scale. That's measurable. If it's just feeling more in control, I mean, there are definitely ways we can feel more in control if we have the tools. So depending on who the client is and what their goals are, we absolutely have to lay measurement on top of that in order to, be able to show impact.
Now, this is a really interesting point, Lida, because every conversation I've ever had with personal branding consultants, they've always told me it's impossible to measure, Stu. It's just something that you have to do. You have to make this investment. And over time, you will begin to see the return on investment as you build your brand, as you put your name out there, as your reputation increases. But there's no way that we can actually measure this and say that, okay, you put XYZ dollars in and it's going to take X amount of time. So when I look at it from this perspective, maybe it's a misconception, because this is the first time I'm actually hearing somebody saying with conviction, yes, personal branding is measurable. Please expand a little bit more on this. This is a really interesting point for our listeners.
Sure. And at my heart, I'm a marketing strategist. So marketing always suffers the burden of being measurable, right? Sales is measurable, but how do you really measure impression and awareness and all of that? So I've always struggled with this when I was in corporate America and when I started my own business. And I think for myself, I have to see measurement to know that I served my clients in the best way. And when the strategy is clear, it's very granular. You can actually watch the needle move and course correct if it isn't making the kind of impact and showing the results that you desire. So for instance, if a client says, I really want to elevate my position, not as a tactician, but as a thought leader in a specific industry, then we're going to look for opportunities and we're going to set goals that say, we want this person to start being referred to as a thought leader. We want this person to start getting invited to discussions and conversations and events where thought leaders gather. We want this person to start being referred to as a thought leader online and to start, contributing content that is of that quality. And as those benchmarks start getting hit, then you can say with confidence, we've become what we aspired to. So it isn't just giving it time and nurturing and letting it sort of happen organically, even though that's always a part of the process. I like to have my clients really have specific metrics that they're looking to achieve so that at a given time frame, if those metrics aren't achieved, we can course correct and we can look at a different strategy to make sure that we're producing a return on that investment, because it is a sizable investment.
When you think about the individuals you help, the organizations that you help, and those wanting to pursue their goals of enhancing their presence in target markets, redefining their reputation in their industry or company, or even repairing their personal brand to ensure continued career success, when you think about those people and those goals, please share a couple of pitfalls that they should be aware of, they should be mindful of while they're out there trying to pursue those goals.
Well, I think the first one is that it's not just about the resume. And I'm very public, whether I'm talking to executives or military veterans, that I think resumes are a part of the equation, but they're not the answer. They are simply a list of what you've done in the past, your successes, your career posts, and your certifications. But I think successful career design requires a little bit of life coaching, a lot of marketing strategy, and the right tools for the right person and the right opportunity. So I think oftentimes what we do is we put too much emphasis on the what and not the who. I think the second pitfall that I run into is that people don't credit perception as much as they should. How I feel about you, how I perceive you to be, often drives whether I will offer you an opportunity. And that's human nature. That's not my position. So how your colleagues, your clients, your vendors, your staff perceive you really does drive the influence that you have. And building influence is a huge opportunity. And you have so much more power than you think. The third pitfall would be that reputation does require consistency. It requires work over a long period of time. Now, my argument is that work becomes so much easier once you figure out who you are. But if you ignore social media, if you act inconsistent with your values, if you're not designing that desired reputation, I really think that you leave a lot of your power to be successful in the hands of other people. And I'm a control freak. I like to have the control myself.
So moving on, in your experience, what are 2 to 3 of the most common fears that prevent the people you work with from achieving their desired goals?
Well, I think the first one is the fear of the unknown. When I started doing personal branding back in 2008, really full-time personal branding, it really wasn't talked about. And if it was talked about, we thought about it as, something celebrities and politicians do. And then some people thought it was career coaching or executive coaching. And while it's a little bit of executive coaching, personal branding really empowers my clients to take control over their career and act with intention and consistency. And that might sound a little bit scary because they don't quite know what that means. But it's that level of dynamic accountability and vision setting that really makes it unlike anything else out there. And until more people start doing this, then it is a little bit of that unknown. I think the second fear, as we kind of touched on earlier, is that this sounds like a lot of hard work. But the hard work is up front. The hard work is done with me. So I'm definitely guiding my clients through this. They're not alone. And it creates those systems for self-marketing that do make the ability to have impact easier and much more measurable, which really is the third point. And we've talked about that as well as, sometimes people fear that personal branding is very hard to measure. And especially if I'm going to go to my board of directors or my company and ask for them to endorse this, I need to know that I can prove something to them, that I can show a result. And reputation management is very measurable when it's done correctly.
Okay, Lida. So again, when you think about the people who you work with, the people on an individual basis, the organizations that you work with, when you think about why they would want to achieve the outcomes of enhancing their presence in target markets or repairing their personal brand to ensure continued career success, why would they want to achieve that outcome? And it sounds like an obvious question, but could you just touch on that and maybe just expand on the emotional reasons and also the logical reasons why?
Well, and absolutely. I think the clients that hire me, that come to the conversation of reputation management or personal branding, they want to feel empowered. They want to feel intentional and focused about how they show up every day, what they're doing with their career, and the legacy they're going to leave behind. So I'll give you two examples, which are kind of contrarian, but they really highlight the kind of people that are attracted to this. I think the first is someone who gets to a point in their career where they've climbed the corporate ladder, they've had the awards, they've made all the quote unquote successes, and they turn to me and they say, but I don't know what it means. And I don't know that this is really what I'm supposed to do. And I don't know that this is the legacy I want to leave behind. But I was always recruited into better positions. I was always, attracted to more money and more fun and better perks. And so I kept moving in my career. But they get to a point where they say, but is this really what I want? Or do I want to do something that has more meaning and impact to the legacy that I'm going to leave when I eventually leave this earth? I think the second was an interesting client that hired me once, very successful business leader. And he said to me, everything in my career is going perfectly. My clients love me. My business is going great. I'm very successful. He said, I have about 15 years before I retire. He said, I don't know what I've done to get here. So it happened very organically for him. And he never really paid attention, but he knew in the next 15 years, he didn't want to mess anything up because he wanted to retire in the same place. So our work together was really clarifying his personal brand. So again, he feels that sense of control, that things aren't random and unintentional, that he knows how to show up, he knows what he's doing, and he can replicate that throughout the rest of his career and retire happily.
Lida.
Yes.
Are you having fun?
I am having a blast. Can't you tell? I really, Stuart, I get to work with some of the most interesting, complicated, fantastic clients around the world, from Australia to Spain to Canada to the UAE to Holland and a lot in the US. And they've all had just these amazing lives, even if they don't think they have. And I get to be part of helping them create next, helping them create their story. And it's fantastic. I love what I do.
And it's just so obvious that you love what you're doing, because you can just feel the passion coming through as you talk about some of these problems and some of the obstacles and the fears and the misconceptions of the people that you work with. And even, when you talked about some of the emotional and logical reasons why they would want to achieve these desired goals that we've been talking about, it's just so clear that you love what you do and you have a big passion around helping the people that you help the most. So now that that's really obvious, let's talk a little bit about your solution. What is it exactly, Lida? Does it have a name? Does it have a brand? What made you come up with the idea? What inspired you to help the kinds of people that you work with today? Now, I know that was about 600 questions in one sentence. In short, a little bit about your backstory and how it all came to be where you are today, please. Thank you.
Sure. So I left corporate America in 2008, worst economy we'd seen in my lifetime here in the States. And I decided to be an entrepreneur. Had never, ever thought about doing that in the past. But when I really started thinking about my brand and the legacy that I wanted to leave, it didn't involve going back into the corporate world and, chasing the next promotion, chasing the next pay increase. It meant doing something that was very risky, very personally accountable, and something that I truly loved. I kept hearing that expression that, people can love what they do for a living. And I wanted to be that person selfishly. So I started my company really to still support the corporate world and do this thing called personal branding on the side. Well, the personal branding really took off. And before I knew it, I was working with clients around the world. I was speaking on the topic at major events, going in and doing corporate training, because personal branding is the essence of accountability, of leadership, of high potential leadership, of everything that companies try to teach their employees, communications and team building and all of that. So I started this company and it just took off like crazy. What was really cool is in 2009, I learned that the military, when they transition out of service, don't have any of these same skills or the opportunity to learn any of these tools. So I started working with the military as a way of saying thank you. And I've been doing that for 6 years. As you noticed, or as you noted in my introduction, my book became the best-selling guide to helping veterans build their brand. And my story is just starting to develop. So I look forward to the next 10, 20, 30 years of doing this because I won't run out of energy. But you asked me about my process. I want to tell you a little bit about what I do. When I work with a client, we call it the Lida360 personal branding method, and it is certainly an accumulation of everything I've learned in my career, as well as a lot of what I've learned from my clients. And I start out with a client by the first step called discovery. And discovery really is where we assess the current brand. We look at what that client wants in terms of their future. What is their legacy that they're looking for? And we spend a lot of time talking about target audiences. Because as you and I know, Stuart, we can't be everything to everybody. No matter how charming and wonderful we are, not everybody's going to find us relevant and compelling. So we have to narrow audience in a very strategic way. And we also do a lot of perception mapping. So I have a proprietary feedback survey that I send out to help a client understand where they are today and where they want to be in the future and how big that gap is. And it's very revealing. I've worked with some executives who had very well established brands, but when they left that position or that title, it's almost as if their brand went with it. So they feel very vulnerable and very exposed to, I don't know who I am anymore if I'm not the CEO of that company. So the discovery process really helps us understand what we're working with. It's very authenticity based. So, I'm not concerned about messaging and the coaching that they've had. I really want to understand, who is this person? What's driving them? What are they passionate about? And where do they want to go with the rest of their career? The second step is where we design. That's where we talk about strategy. We look at the opportunities that are in front of us, navigating the obstacles, but really, what are the opportunities? Because we're going to create strategy and tactics that are going to help that person live authentically and with intention, but again, thinking very much about the impact and the results that we want to see. So we might use in-person messaging, for instance. How does that person do they have an elevator pitch? Do they show up and know how to introduce themselves? We might look at driving more targeted results in different markets. So we have to do some research and some discovery back into those markets. But the design phase is really the strategy setting. And my clients they have to be on board with that. So we spend a lot of time discussing, how comfortable they are with that. And then finally, the third step is to deploy. And we deploy the marketing in a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 strategy, putting the action into enhancing my client's reputation in a very systematic way. So it might be, updating their online profiles, starting some new blogs or online assets, looking at how their image and body language is playing into this. What does their network look like? Do we need to have them start building visibility in different circles in their industry or in new industries? So the third step is really where we sort of get out of the office and go out and deploy those strategies. And that's really where we start to see some of the impact show up quickly.
Awesome. Lida, before I came onto the show today, I was showing one of my friends your online profile. I said, hey, I got an interview today with Lida Citroën. And he was like, damn, she's hot, man. She's hot. And I was like, hey, chill out. She's not only hot, but she's a smart cookie. And you have just proven that hands down. I mean, the information you shared today with us, all joking aside, it's been straight as a die, as we say in England. It's been so concise, and it just hit the nail on the head with every single point, and just really showed just how much you care, and that you're a real, true educator and an advocate for your prospects and clients' success. So with that said, I'm sure anybody who's listening to this show and they're in the market for the things that you can help them with, I'm sure they're going to be asking themselves, something, I want to get in touch with Lida. Maybe you need to bring her in. Maybe it's an HR director or an event organizer or an investor, vendors, or any other types of key business decision makers that are listening to the show and they want to know more Lida. If that's the case, where can they find you? How can they connect with you?
Well, my website, simply enough, is LIDA360.com, and that's LIDA360.com. I'm also on every social networking platform, from Facebook to LinkedIn to YouTube to Instagram, Pinterest. That's a big part of what I do. So it's pretty hard to not find me online. But my website really houses all of the information and the resources and provides a great way to get in touch with me, LIDA360.com.
So you're out there drinking your own Kool-Aid, as we say, right?
I'm loving my life because I am in control of my career and my brand. Yes.
I love it, Lida. Unfortunately, Lida, we've come to the end of the show. We don't have any more time. But before we say our goodbyes, do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share with the listeners out there?
I think the final thought I would share is that, this isn't right for everyone at this time. So oftentimes I'll talk to a client and they'll say, this is exactly what I need, but I'm not ready to emotionally get there yet. And that's okay. I just want to have the conversation and see if we can't offer some tools to put people back in control of their career. And if it is the right time, I would love to work with your listeners. But just understand that this isn't right for everybody at this time.
Well, you heard it from herself. That was Lida Citroën, principal and founder of LIDA360. If you are in the market for reputation marketing, for enhancing your presence in your target market, for redefining your reputation in your industry, or even within your company, or you looking to repair your personal brand and to ensure continued career success, then get in touch with her. She is the right person you need to be talking with. So with that said, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Stuart. It's been a lot of fun.
You're welcome, Lida. Thank you so much. And remember, perfection is not when there is nothing left to add. It's when there's nothing left to take away. This was Stuart Andrew Alexander saying goodbye for now, and we will talk real soon.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.